rather handheld or? Okay. Good morning. It's not afternoon, it is morning. I was getting ready to say afternoon. Good morning and welcome to our Arts Forum where we link social justice with the arts. This morning we have Kianna Taylor who is going to talk about creative writing and social justice. And we're really excited. Kianna is a member of First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston, and she's been writing for quite a while. She's actually published. So we're excited to have her, and we thank you all for being here.
Okay. Okay. Just add a bit of a correction. I don't do creative writing. I mostly do article writing, blog writing, and like marketing stuff. Um, and I will get to creative writing eventually, but for right now, I just like focusing on what's going on right now. Um, And so I will begin. So the title of my presentation is The Power of a Story. And I will begin by asking the audience, what is your favorite story? You can just shout out some names if you want to. Oh, really? Oh my gosh. Come on, you didn't think I wasn't gonna ask that question. Like, come on. Yeah, what comes to your head the first? Okay, cool. Oh, okay. Okay, anyone else? All right, that's good too. Adam looks like he's thinking really hard. And what? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I like autobiographies as well. Okay. Well, my favorite story is called Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. And it's the tender love story between Achilles and I don't know how to pronounce his name, Patroclus. Sorry, even though my my first my freshman English teacher would be appalled. Um, um, so even though I know that they're fated to die, the author spellbinds me by the dynamic. She makes me feel like a middle school kid when Twilight was published. I devoured this book and it moved me to tears, even though I knew all along it would end up that way. She made me enjoy the journey. This is the power of a story in my personal life, and it helps me introduce the topic for this arts forum. Okay, so the outline of the discussion will go as follows. We'll talk about the function of a story, and then we'll distinguish between a story and a narrative. Then we will talk about helpful and unhelpful narratives, all while tying it to the progression of social movements. And then we'll end on the introduction of a personal project. Sorry, real quick, my wife is here. Uh, in the sanctuary. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so we'll move into. I will preface the functions of a story with a personal story of my own. So I had always been interested in journalism and the media, but I didn't always, I wasn't always aware of it. I didn't know that that's what that what I was interested in, and that's what that was called. I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in my major of choice, and neither did anyone else I ever talked to. People would ask me like, what are you majoring in? And I'd be like, English, and then they'd be like, what are you gonna do with that? And I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm just here for the ride. And one evening, as I was playing pool in my dorm with some other dorm mates, there was this college freshman. He comes up to me. He asked me the same question. What are you majoring in? Because he's playing with pool with us, and he's pretty good. And he had like a huge interest in like military weapons. So you can guess his major was like warfare, historical warfare, whatever. Made me question why he was in college and not in the military, but you know, whatever. So yeah, he asked me what my major was. I said English in a little mousy voice, like English, and he said, and then he picked up my insecurity about it, so he felt free to say, "Well, that's stupid. What's the use in that?" And I was like. My voice shook when I spoke, and I tried to tell him how texts like the Declaration of Independence and treaties were essential to the study of history and analysis. He brushed me off. I wish I had the gusto I have now. I would have told him that English is a tool we use to tell stories, and stories are powerful things. We use them to connect, like at parties, or in conversations. We use them to explain the unknown, like in myths and fairy tales. We use them to inspire change and overcoming. Social commentaries like Dante's Inferno or just general satire. And we use them to influence. Now I'm going to move into the parts of a story. Story and narrative are closely related terms, and they're often used interchangeably, but they can have slightly different connotations, depending on context. In general usage, they are often synonymous, referring to an account of events or experiences. However, story can sometimes imply a more structured, complete account. It has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end. While narrative is used in a broader sense to refer to any sequence of events or the way in which the events are organized or presented. For example, you have the story of the Native Americans, but in school textbooks, you have the narrative that they are savages. Examples like those. For example, and another example is in the Song of Achilles, which I mentioned earlier. The story is that Achilles, I want to call him Achilles because that's the Greek translation of that, but sorry. Okay, sorry, English rant. Okay, let's see. One of the greatest warriors of the Trojan War, and Patroclus, they die. However, the narrative in history is that they're friends. They're really great friends. They're really great friends. But, of course, I hold hands with my friends all the time. Like, I cuddle with them in a tent and everything. It's crazy. But Madeline Miller took this story, which is originally in the Iliad by Homer, and she writes the narrative a different way. She zooms into the relationship between Patroclus and Achilles, and she tells the narrative, and she twists the narrative to give light to things about like gender, gender exploration with Achilles, the relationship between him and his mother, and also she puts in a lot of pro-women narratives there, which I'm not sure that's what their culture was about, but you know, why not? It's fiction. Hello, why not? It is fiction. She transforms the narrative, and she creates something that is moving and powerful. Now, how does that relate to social justice? Well, in our society, we are bombarded with stories about ourselves, like from myths about ourselves and each other to what's displayed on the news to our personal lives. For example, narratives against the government providing basic income to poor residents often center around, well, if we give them money, then aren't they just going to waste it on drugs or alcohol? An article covering Canada's implementation of this program said skeptics were shocked to see that the recipients of that money was actually spent on food, education, and their families. Shocker. All right. But I want us to walk away from this talk analyzing the stories fed to us and thinking about ways we can counteract them. Just last Wednesday, I facilitated a discussion on why America is so obsessed with punishment. It was an attempt to hint at prison reform. I want to introduce that topic to our church and investigate it more fully. Someone raised an excellent point about the ways in which the stories, the cartoons, the school textbooks, our heroes in society are based on, well, violent people. I immediately think of Beowulf. I'm like, yeah, there's a guy and he defeats and he kills a monster, right? And that I read that in like, I don't know, high school, middle school, and that's why we have a culture that equates brutal, violent punishment with justice. Other points that were raised were the individualistic response to punishment. Some people I grew up with, once said that brutal punishment was necessary because it worked for them. Like, my mom beat me, and I turned out just fine. So the government should be able to do the same to everyone. Because that works for everyone, because it worked for me. We hear these things, but that's the stories that people say. And these are the stories that justify the systems that we currently have. And it's like, and this doesn't just it doesn't apply to prison reform, but it applies to the narratives we share in education, in healthcare. Who deserves healthcare? Who deserves education? And what kind of education are they getting? What kind of healthcare are they getting? And what kind of like stories and narratives help divide us, so that, and how do we break those down? How do we counteract them so that we can work together more? So I'm going to move into some examples of helpful and unhelpful narratives, starting with unhelpful narratives because it's a nice little reframing technique. Let's start with the negatives and end on the positives. So some unhelpful narratives that I've heard before. Voting. My vote doesn't matter, so I'm just going to sit this out. There's no point in voting because everything is just corrupt. Everything's corrupt. Everything's pre-decided already. Or I'm just one person. There's nothing I can do about something. And helpful narratives to counteract narratives like that, and helpful narratives that I know of, come from an autobiography of Angela Davis. That I read a few weeks ago. Riveting stuff, though, by the way. You gotta read about her. It's through her story and narrative that I have hope that community organizing and protesting, community letter writing, community phone calling the legislators, that stuff makes things move, even if things seem impossible. It seemed impossible that she was not going to get out of prison, the death penalty. So she's an activist. She went to school in. She went to a university in California, and at the time, let's see, I think it was Reagan, the Reagan family that was targeting her because it was rumored that she was a communist. So, and that was a crime because I think that was during the McCarthy era or something like that. And so the government conspired to have her arrested and put to death for the murder of someone. I'm not sure. I don't remember who that was, but yeah. And so she was in prison, and so she wrote about it, and she wrote about her experience in prison and why they need to be abolished. And she wrote about, and so she wrote how it was through this collective action that she was able to even get out. And had it not been for that, she would have just been there. And the judge that decided to release her was moved by all this collective action. I think that was the most profound thing for me. And so I just think that if we can do that for if that can be done for one person, I'm sure we can do that for social change. When I listened to Aaron Walters speak at the UU luncheon, the narrative of our state changed for me. Um, she gave a sermon like a week or two ago. And it was through hearing her story of pushing back 95 anti LGBT bills that really gave me hope. I was feeling dreary before because I was like, man, I really love Texas, but it just the Texas government don't like me. And so it's just, it's the question, do we need to move? Do we need to start all the way over? I really don't want to. I don't want to go anywhere. She says she don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to either. And so I love it here. And so it was nice to see someone else out there fighting, doing the work, and it did something. Um, it made me really believe that if we can win if we keep pushing. Um, and so that brings me to my final part in my presentation, which is um, the so which is my project. I was inspired to start my project because of well, I would say I was more like really inspired to really bring it into fruition um, because of that talk. Um, I run a podcast and a blog called Bridge Spaces. I hope to turn it into a media company one day once I can secure the funds. The initiative was started to counteract the manipulation of outlets. The news we watch is not covering the ways in which we can all come together and take action. So every month I sit down with like leaders of color in the community, in the Houston community, to give them space to tell us their story. My first episode featured an interview with Stacey Allen on using dance and creativity to fight for racial equity and social change. In between, there will be segments of me offering news and opinion articles such as equating self-care with voting. In order to get ahead of societal narratives, which I think, unfortunately, that um, the far right does they do a good job of doing that, and I feel like if we can if and I feel like we depend on the Democratic Party to do that, but what can we do of it individually? I believe in the power in individual power banding, like coming together to and doing something too. Like I think there's a lot of power in that. And so for me, my initiative is Bridge Spaces, which the goal of that is to challenge existing narratives, and to and to give like a sense of hope during like all this war, all these things happening in Texas as far as reproductive rights and racial violence. So yeah, and so I want and so. Yeah, and so if you want to learn more, you can follow us on our website at Bridge Spaces cm.blogspot.com, or you can like us on our Facebook page or Instagram, and that's all I have. Cool. Okay. Sure. I also have a business card if you want, and I can give that to you a little later. That has all the information. What's that? I do. I do. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Any other questions?
And they, and it's like, I know these kids, they're good kids. They actually, if you look at the causes that they believe in, they're actually, you would identify them as left wing, but they consider themselves apolitical because they haven't, the stories they've been given are so confusing and at odds with each other, and they don't know how to connect those causes with stories that make sense to them. And the language that they're getting is, there's a lot of stuff from these people who have been, I mean, I referenced 4chan because there's communities on the internet who for decades have had the goal of sowing these kinds of things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I have, like I said, it's not really a question. I think that was a really salient point that you brought up.
Yeah. No, those are excellent points. That's why I wanted to start this initiative as well, because my goal is to eventually get to YouTube where I can just like create like those like really cool videos that talk about things like democracy, and because I think if we can also, I think we have the power to sow those seeds as well. So I'm just like, you know what? Fine. If the Democratic Party won't do it, I'll do it myself. All right. So, but yeah. You can go.
How are ways that we can, one, help you, two, help to change the lingo, right? So what can we individually do to change the lingo, whether it's when I don't know, whether it's when we're posting or things that we say or even identifying it, because I don't even know that I would identify it.
Right. I think it comes with. I think it does come with like interacting as we interact more and more with social media. I think it's a matter of what are we sharing, what are we promoting. I think that does make a bit of a difference. I know it sounds like it doesn't because it's a million voices out there, right? But it does make a difference. It does go into the algorithm, and it's just like just keep fighting, keep posting. As for individually though, like in your everyday life, I can preface that question with a story of my own. Um, so when I moved to Los Angeles, after college to go work at a nonprofit, I was one of those people. I was a far right person, and that happened because in college, I didn't know how to really make friends. I was very isolated. I just didn't know how to connect with people very well. And so usually when that happens, evangelical Christian circles are just really good at like being there for the awkward person because they just kind of accept whoever. And so I unfortunately got like really wrapped up into those circles, and it felt nice to have that sense of community, outside of like things that came up, like I don't know, my sexuality or I'm black, that kind of thing. And so I went to Los Angeles and I met a mentor that was assigned to me, and she, of course, she had more like left views, and she had, well, let's just say she had different views, and I was talking about my issue with like climate change. I thought it wasn't a big deal. Like I thought things just happen. Just spitting out what I heard. And she didn't really ridicule what I had to say. She just repeated it back to me. And she just like, yeah, she just repeated it back to me. And when she repeated it back to me, I was like, oh, that sounds stupid. So I think just like when you come across someone who has different views than you, I know, first of all, as a person of color, check in with yourself first. Because like if it seems unsafe, don't do it. But if you are in a position to talk with someone like that, I would say just listen to them, and just repeat it back. And I think that gives them the space to think about it. And also on a more local level, I really would love to see more places, there are things like that happening where it's like you have these spaces that are trying to kindle important conversations, so that it does get people to think. And so that is happening on a local level. I met an Asian American woman who's getting that started, and it's happening. But of course, we do what we can, right? We have our own talents and our own gifts, and we'll use them the best that we can. But so yeah, I think just going out of your way just to talk to someone that is different and just like listen and just parrot it back, and just showing them companionship, because you never know. Because a lot of the times people who end up with far right stuff, I think people like that who are doing that is because they feel a lack of connection, and they're unfortunately, this is a personal choice. They probably should just go outside or something. But I don't know. But but like, yeah, it's just a matter of like I think they want that connection. I think they feel isolated in some way, and I think offering them that sense of companionship would help. But then again, check in with yourself first, because sometimes that's possible, sometimes that's not. I don't take that on all the time. But yeah. What's that?
I'm serious, just hanging in the car. I don't even use it because I have two other ones at home.
Oh.
I'm willing to donate it to you. It's like 40, 50 at most, probably before, not anymore.
Oh.
I don't know, but you can have it.
Maybe I can go take back the other microphone.
Yeah.
Get some money back. Shoot. Oh, cool. Thank you. Okay, what's that?
I think it's important that you're talking about when you just parrot something back to them, because they've not heard what they're saying.
Right.
They're just repeating something, and they've not thought about it. So I think it's important for us to, and people that are open to anything, ask a question.
Yeah.
It's an automatic response that you got to come up with an answer somewhere.
Yeah.
And so you start to think, hopefully, they will start to think, where did I hear this? Do I believe this? And,
Right.
all of those kinds of questions I think would help people really start to think. Because I'm thinking from a perspective of my grandchildren, and I'm going like, is that what you think? What do you think? They're not thinking. They're just wanting to fit in.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
Exactly.
And that's a huge
Especially if
thing.
you're talking about teenagers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's kind of like, what does that shirt mean to you? What are you wearing on your back? What are you? What is that? So it's really important to prod their thinking process. At least, hopefully they'll make the choices but at least think about what they're actually promoting when they're talking about.
Right. Okay, we have 2 more minutes.
Like that's how people,
It's
how you know if
huge,
you're,
because you cannot see yourself.
when I'm doing like physical therapy, one of the most important things to make sure I'm doing myself correctly is to look in the mirror. And that's like the idea of being that for somebody's like beliefs, is to give them a mirror.
That's awesome. This was very nice. This turned out way better than I thought it'd be. So thank you.
And I just want to thank all of you for coming, and thank you especially, Kianna, for being here with us today and accepting this challenge.